presented for your pleasure by
Cool Shake, the swell new mix for making thick, foamy milkshakes at home.
pre-cooked minute rice for perfect rice without cooking.
And Jell-O Instant Pudding, that good, busy day dessert.
Quickly, Mr. Boynton. See down here by the brook.
Yeah, but that man.
It is your only chance. Put your...
Papa, how can I hope to make you understand why I do what I do? Why I must travel to a distant land, far from the home I love. Once I was happily content to be as I was, where I was, close to the people who are close to me, here in the home I love.
In 1814 we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run it on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We looked down the river and
who can turn the world on with her smile, who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile. Well, it's you, girl, and you should know it. With each glance and every little movement you show it. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can have the town, why don't you take it? You're gonna make it after all.
It's our fault, 'cause you've taken her away. And though it really hurts me so, there's something that I've gotta say. Take good care of my baby. Please don't ever make her blue. Just tell her that you love her. Make sure you're thinking of her in everything you say and do. Take good care of my baby. Now don't you ever
If somehow you could pack up your sorrows and give them all to me. Once again, as in olden days, happy golden days of yore. Childhood friends who were dear to me, who will be near to me once more.
Well, here we are once again at Mia's World and City World Radio Network. Today is a special Passover Easter broadcast for Mia's World, which will be rebroadcast again, probably April 30th and some other dates in between, which you'll know about. But I have a really incredible special guest today, and I'm going to welcome her right now. She's calling in, Julie Budd. Hi, Julie.
How are you? It's so great to speak to you, and thank you, everybody, for being here today and all the help in the studio that you have today. They're awfully nice to come in.
We've got Jade Zabrich, my fabulous engineer, singer-songwriter, who has a show right after this one today. And where are you playing, Jade, next?
Pianos on May 4th.
Pianos on May 4th. That's a Saturday. I know that because Julie Budd's singing that night at Birdland, too. But, you know, we could possibly do both.
Hey, listen, I like it when all the musicians are working. I think that's a good sign, don't you guys?
Yes, we do. That's very camaraderie-ish. I love you, Julie. Also, we've got Adrian in the house, who's a rapper and engineer in training. So, here, hi, Adrian. So we're just going to start out talking about that music medley. And usually I base the medley on people whose birthdays were born the day of the broadcast. Now, being today a special interim broadcast, these are really April 30th days, but who cares, right? It's all in the neighborhood, right, Julie? So
I like a celebration where I can get it.
Yes, exactly. So it's spring, and all the spring crocuses and tulips are out, and we love it. It's a beautiful day in New York today. It always turns good weather for Passover, right, Julie?
Listen, we wouldn't have it any other way.
And it's a gorgeous Easter Sunday, too. So the first song in the medley was my theme song, Moonlight in Vermont, one of my favorite all-time standards. And I think April 30th is International Jazz Day, so on April 30th it'll be perfect. Moonlight in Vermont, Carl Sustorf's beautiful ballad. Then we had Percy Heath, jazz bass player, with I Remember April, and it is still April. He was born April 30th, 1923. The Heath brothers, Jimmy Heath, tenor saxophone, brother to Jimmy Heath and drummer Albert Heath, and that was Percy Heath on bass with I Remember April. Followed by another April baby, Duke Ellington, born April 29th, 1899, with Mood Indigo, which is kind of a beautiful image of indigo blue. And then we had Eve Arden. Remember Our Miss Brooks? Does anybody remember that except me?
Absolutely.
Oh, yay. She was born in Mill Valley, California, and that was the theme song to Our Miss Brooks. And Eve was born in 1908. Oh, my gosh, April 30th. Followed by Sheldon Harnick, the fabulous lyricist from Fiorello and Fiddler on the Roof, born April 30th, 1924. And that was from the film version of Fiddler on the Roof, one of the beautiful songs, Far From the Home I Love, sung by Michelle Marsh. And then we had Johnny Horton, country music and rockabilly singer, born April 30th, 1925, with The Battle of New Orleans, composed by Jimmy Driftwood. Followed by the great theme song from Mary Tyler Moore, because Cloris Leachman, who played Phyllis, was born April 30th, 1926. And I believe on April 30th, she'd be 93. That's hard to believe. Theme song by Sonny Curtis. Then, even Julie Budd through the wires knew that it was Bobby V, Take Good Care of My Baby by Carole King and Jerry Goffin, born April 30th, 1943. I love that song, don't you? Take Good Care of My Baby. And then we heard Mimi Farina with Pack Up Your Sorrow. So we like to transition between folk, classical, jazz, country, whatever. Mimi Farina, born 1945, April 30th. And then we heard the fabulous Julie Budd at age 16 years old. I think you look exactly the same, Julie.
You know, some of those recordings were done when I was 15, some 14, some 16.
Unbelievable.
You know, because around that time there was all that television and
right.
all those great TV specials.
Oh, my God, we're going to talk.
I think that's where you picked up those recordings.
Yes, that was from the Carol Burnett show, and you were one of my all-time favorite songs ever from any musical, Where Is Love, from Oliver, right? And that was Lionel Bart. Julie, you were probably 16.
I think I was 16 there, yes.
Yes, and then finally we heard the fabulous harmonica player Toots Thielmans, who playing Bluesette. Isn't that a great tune? And I think he was born in 1923, April 29th, 1923. So that was the musical medley. And a couple of other announcements before we chat with Julie and hear more about what she's doing in her incredibly illuminated, vibrant life. We've got, let's see, Alice B. Toklas, the famous American companion of Gertrude Stein, born April 30th, 1877, and actress Kirsten Dunst, born 1982, actress Jill Clayburgh, 1944, and the Israeli actress Gal Gadot from Wonder Woman, born in Israel in 1985, April 30th. On April 30th in history, 1952, you're going to love this, Julie, Mr. Potato Head was the first toy advertised on television. Remember Mr. Potato Head?
Yes, but I'm still getting over Gal Gadot being born in 1985.
I know.
Like I'm still getting over that one.
I know. It's hard to imagine. April 30th, 1789, on the balcony of Federal Hall on Wall Street in New York City, George Washington took oath of office to become the first elected president of the United States. And a few holidays for April 30th, Bugs Bunny Day, Hairstyle Appreciation Day. It's amazing how hairstyles change and then come back. International Jazz Day, Adopt a Shelter Pet Day, National Animal Advocacy Day, National Bubble Tea Day, and National Honesty Day. So we can't lie too much. Okay. So now here is my weekly wrap-up of the news in rhyme. And I do this every week for about 6 years. And here we go, Julie. And Jade and Adrian. Okay, here we go. Is it Mueller or Mueller? Would somebody please clarify?
Mueller.
Mueller? Rhymes with Kruller? That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
Like Oiveyer.
Oiveyer, okay. The Mueller report is out, so Dems and Repubs don't pout. Redacted or not, it's what we got, and Barr is steadfast, no doubt. The words obstruction and lie are at an all-time high. Both sides are livid, their hysteria vivid. I think I'll go get some pie. We're all feeling the blues because of all this news. So much legalese. What about all the fees? We've all overpaid our dues. Is Cinderella dreaming? Now Disney will be streaming. No muss, no fuss. It's called Disney Plus. Will its content be redeeming? The good news, it undercuts rival Netflix. No ifs, and, or buts. The stock hell-bent soared 60%. The company sure has guts. At a monthly $6.99, Disney Classics divine. Frozen 2, Snow White, children's delight. Sounds like a film gold mine. Iconic When Harry Met Sally, with humor as dry as the valley, the scene in the deli is smokin', whoa Nelly, deserved a grand finale. Meg Ryan takes the cake, orgasm real or fake. She's feisty and bold, the film's 20 years old, I think I'll go get a steak. Get out the derby bonnets soon, for Saturday afternoon, the horses are running, we must all look stunning, my old Kentucky home, let's croon. It's National Bubble Tea Day, so sip your cares away. Try a mint julep, smell a pink tulip. Now where is my Chardonnay? And that's the rhyming news of the week. So, Julie, you still there?
I'm still here. I'm still working on 1985.
You're so funny. Okay, so in the house, through the wires, through the technology of modern times, we've got Julie Budd calling in. And Julie, I literally, revealing my age, I really don't care anymore, but I really did see you on all those shows, Merv Griffin, Ed Sullivan, Johnny Carson. I was like agog, and I would call my parents every time, and it's like, you gotta watch Julie.
Don't you miss those shows? I miss them. I loved the Mike Douglas show. Remember the Mike Douglas?
Of course. I mean, that was one of my, jotted down questions, going zigzagging through my questions here. But the TV shows that you were on so early in your life were so different. The variety shows, Merv Griffin, Mike Douglas, Ed Sullivan. Now, we've got Fallon and who do we have? SNL, yeah.
You have all these wonderful talents, and
yes.
Every one of them, James Corden and
Right.
Jimmy Fallon and,
Right.
and Jimmy Kimmel. These are talented guys.
Yes.
But the thing is, I don't feel like we're discovering a variety of music in the way that we did years ago.
Right. I agree. It's not, and new talent, not so much new talent. It's pretty much, who's the popular taste of the day, who's out there, who's trendy, right?
Yeah, but it's all bands. It's all bands, and
Right.
it's great. It's terrific, except that it sort of negates a whole world of different musicians. Like you have Adrian there, who's a rapper. Well,
Right.
if Johnny Carson was around today and one of his scouts saw Adrian perform and thought he was great, they'd put him on the show and they'd give him a spot. You know,
exactly.
You've discovered people.
Yes, exactly.
And did the same, and they put enough name-worthy people there where it supported the show so they could do it.
Right. I totally agree. Like, let's talking about being discovered. You were discovered at age 12, I think, in the Catskills. You won a talent contest. And in the audience was Herb Bernstein, who was still is a great conductor, composer, arranger, the whole Megillah. And he found you and heard you and then, introduced you to Merv Griffin?
Exactly. He was recording Merv Griffin that fall.
Right.
And actually at the end of the summer, end of July, sort of end of August, in that 30-day period, he was involved in the Laura Nero project.
Uh-huh.
He had produced and orchestrated her first album, which is the album that put her on the boards, you know, because it was her first hit. And her major hits were all in that album.
Mm.
I mean, she had some other hits, but this was really the breakout hit album. Matter of fact, the album that Herb did with her wound up in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And that's the summer that I met him, and that's the summer I met Laura Nero, and that's the summer I entered show business, and I had just turned 12 that May.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just turned 12 that May.
Incredible.
And then Herbie was recording Merv, and he brought me down to the studio, and I remember on the break, that, you know, the musicians had to have a union break several times.
Uh-huh.
And Herbie brought me over to Merv while everybody was on a break, and he said, "Merv, why don't you play I'm Always Chasing Rainbows in the key of," who remembers what I sang? Maybe I sang it in C or wherever. And Merv started playing, and then Herbie nudged me to start singing. And I started to sing, and Merv he loved it. And it was funny because originally he really didn't want to be bothered with it. As a matter of fact, I'll quote him. He looks at Herbie and he says, "You know, Herbie, I love you, but why are you bringing me these kids that sing at weddings and bar mitzvahs?" Just like that. And then Merv started to play, you know. He started to play the piano, and then Herbie nudged me to get in there and start singing. And I started to sing, and his whole demeanor changed, which I didn't expect. You know, I was 12 years old, and I was just following what Herb said to do, start singing.
Exactly. Oh, my God. There's nothing like timing and being there and singing it live, and you did
but
just
that. But here's the best part. 1 week later, less than 1 week later, I wound up on TV.
On his show?
Yeah, but you have to understand something. I never did anything before.
You never did TV or radio or anything?
I was picked up out of the streets of Brooklyn, plucked out of the streets of Brooklyn, and plopped right onto 44th Street and Broadway. And there I was. All of a sudden, within a week, my mother had my hair done and a new dress, and I was on television.
And you were, I guess, you know, you were just born ready because you just sort of dissolved into being there and being prepared, and your stage presence or your personality preparedness or something, you just blossomed from there, you know.
I think one of the things that Herb did, which showed him to be a very good coach, was that he left me alone. He didn't try to overtrain me in terms of my persona. As far as my voice was concerned, he was always concerned that I got with the best teachers so that I would never hurt myself. Because the rigors of the industry could destroy a young instrument or any instrument that's being overused. But I think where he was wise, where he was really, really wise, was he never tried to make my persona slick or more than it was. He thought that there was a charm in just being a kid who happened to be a good musician.
Which is really... I'm sorry, go ahead.
And he was wise. He was wise.
And that's very rare in that industry.
Yeah, don't you think?
Yes, and I also think it's a reflection of his personality, which is very gentle, mild-mannered, very wise, but you know what I mean? And
he's a very genuine person.
Yeah, So it just made sense. Thank God the two of you, merged and clicked and all that. Well, let's just play, speaking of Herb Bernstein, I have a cut of number 3, Jade, Where Am I Going, by Cy Coleman and Dorothy Fields, with music director Herb Bernstein, with Julie Budd singing. So let's hear
and
that.
Herb orchestrated. You'll notice the front of it it's a beautiful introduction to the tune, and Herb orchestrated that arrangement as well.
Oh, okay. Here's Where Am I Going with Julie Budd.
Where am I going, and what will I find? What's in the scrap bag that I call my mind? What am I doing alone on the shelf? Ain't it a shame, but no one's to blame but myself. Which way is clear when you've lost your way year after year?
Every night I make love to 25,000 people, and then I go home alone. Janis Joplin, 1970.
So we heard Julie Budd with some of Cy Coleman's gorgeous song, Where Am I Going, which leads into my next topic, Julie, about the fact that you seem to radiate collaboration. Like you, aside from being on Carson and Ed Sullivan and Carol Burnett and The Tonight Show, you have been known to collaborate with these amazing people, and like Marvin Hamlisch, like Michel Legrand. And is that something that you sort of consciously wanted to do, or did it sort of just happen?
I always wanted to. You have to hope it will happen.
Yeah.
This show that I'm doing at Birdland, May 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at Birdland Theater.
Yeah. Yes.
It's called, and it's interesting because it goes right into what you're speaking about.
Yes.
The show is called The Songs of My Life and the Composers That Wrote Them.
Yes.
And what the show is about is the fact that I was very, very lucky throughout my career, not just as a kid, but even ongoing right now. I have had the great fortune of collaborating with probably the greatest people in music in our generation. Mm-hmm. Marvin Hamlisch, Herb Bernstein, Artie Butler, Steve Dorff,
Michel Legrand,
Anthony Newley, Cy Coleman. I've known Dorothy Fields. I'm friendly with her son.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Some of the greatest. I mean, I've known Burt Bacharach and Hal David, and I've performed their material and known them. And I knew Julie Stein very well and performed his material. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, he one time crashed one of my shows and just showed up and sat down and played in the middle of my show. It was fun.
Oh, my God.
And, I mean, I've known some of the finest people in our industry and had the great fortune of recording with them and touring. I toured with Marvin Hamlisch for 7 years. I did a film with him.
Wow.
I did one of his plays. And I think it does change you as an artist because you have the sense of the legacy of what you're working with. Mm-hmm. And it's like playing with a better tennis player. Your game gets better when you play with people that are better than you.
Yes. Well, it's very mature to even acknowledge that, because a lot of stars, divas, they think they're better than everybody, but you've remained so humble, and you're such an incredible personality, singer, and friend. And you're pretty unique, I would say, in the business, to me, to my personal feeling.
Well, thank you. I've heard before, and you'd think I would know by now. I'm sort of in my own little cocoon when it comes to these things. But I've heard that, a lot of artists, like you say, believe that they are the final word in everything. Right. I think it's important to have it's a funny balance. It's a funny balance because you have to believe in what you're doing and you have to go with your instinct. On the other hand, you have to be wise and put good people around you and listen too. So it's a bit of a balancing act. But if you trust them, and if they trust you, you somehow, the collaboration, you become one mind, if you're doing it right.
I am so with you. I really totally couldn't agree more. Well, speaking of Jules Stein, one of the things I selected to play, Jade number 2, is Jules Stein's amazing song from Peter Pan, Neverland. Because I just love.
Well, Neverland. That was that Comden and Green.
Yes.
And was Julie was in there too.
Yes, absolutely, and Julie and Julie. And so here's Julie Budd singing Neverland.
Place where dreams are born and time is never planned. It's not on any chart. You can find it with your heart. Never, never land. It might be miles beyond the moon, or right there where you stand. Just keep an open mind, and then suddenly
Julie, that song and your singing make me, I'm going to hold it in, but it's going to make me cry. It's so
I love
emotional.
That. And Don Sebesky, he did that orchestration. Herbie did the arrangement, and Don did the orchestration. You know, what's funny is I was listening to that, and you were talking to me about Hank Jones. And,
right.
You know, that I did Skylark with him on the Sullivan Show when I was 15, And to think about it, it was an extraordinary time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all part of. When I think of my life has been predicated around training.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to all of these recordings, and I was thinking to myself, the common link is all of the training. My life has just been so much about training.
Did you study formally? Speaking of training.
Well, I came into the industry with no training. I mean, like I said, I found myself a week later on television,
Right.
But I think Herbie was wise enough to realize that, what the rigors of the industry can do to a young instrument that's not focused,
Right.
And he got me to somebody who I must say, really, Lydia Summers and Willard Young saved my life. But I have to tell you, originally they didn't want to deal with me at this age because they didn't want to train a voice that young. They wanted me to come back when I was 16 or 18, but they realized that they had to take me on because I was working so much.
Right.
That I think they were worried.
Uh-huh.
I think they were worried that by the time, if they waited, I could have damage.
Right. Well, that was smart. Right.
You could get into bad habits. The rigors of the industry could hurt you. You could be out of the tour more than you're in the tour if you don't know what you're doing.
Yes, exactly.
So they took me on at a really young age. I had just turned 15 when I met Lydia Summers and Willard Young, and that was a lifesaver.
Amazing.
That gave me legs. That gave me real legs.
How did you find them, or did they find you?
Herbie and his assistant and co-writer, Bud Rehack, and a wonderful, wonderful artist by the name of Eddie Rambeau, and a great director by the name of Jerry Grant, and Eve Sorrell, God bless her. She's worked with me. She's a great stage manager and director. These were the people that were around me, and they knew Lydia and Willard, and they brought me to her.
Thank goodness that all worked so well, and it just flowed together.
God had his arms around me.
Really, or as I like to say, goddess.
Goddess had her arms around me because I could have gotten in the wrong hands.
That's
I can't
so true.
tell you how many voices get destroyed because they fall into the wrong hands.
Yeah, I know. I just want to repeat that Julie Budd, my guest on Mia's World on City World Radio Network, will be at Birdland at 315 West 44th Street, May 1st through 4th. That's Wednesday through Saturday, singing a song, doing a show called The Songs of My Life and the composers who wrote them with Herb Bernstein, the fabulous Herb Bernstein that we've been talking about, musical director. And also on May 15th, you'll be doing a special night.
May 14th.
May 14th. I'm sorry, yes, Tuesday, May 14th. Thank you. At the Friars Club, a tribute to you, actually. It's all about Julie Budd, May 14th, with the interviewer, Richard Skipper. So that's going to be amazing.
Well, it's going to be a very, very exciting night because it's going to be a retrospect of my career, and we're going to show film clips, and I'm going to sing 4 or 5 songs, and Richard's going to talk to Herb, I suppose, as well,
right,
and me, and everyone's going to have dinner and a big cocktail party, and it's around the time of our birthdays, Herbie's birthday and my birthday, because we're May babies.
And so happy birthday early.
Yep. My birthday's May 7th, and Herbie's the 15th, and this is on the 14th.
Perfect timing.
Tuesday, May 14th at the Friars. And they may even open up some seats, by the way, to outside guests.
Oh, how interesting.
So it could be, which they don't usually do, but there's been a lot of demand for it, so maybe they will.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I can run up there after my radio show that night.
I would love it. Don't worry. I'll get you in there, buddy.
Reservations, Giuseppe Tarillo, 212-751-7272. So back to Julie Budd, my phenomenal guest tonight. Thank you so much, Julie. I would love to hear more about your collaboration and time spent with the great Michel Legrand, another collaboration of some incredible import.
Well, I owe that to my dear friend Frank Fiore, who's a fabulous producer and a great orchestrator in his own right, wonderful pianist, great conductor. Matter of fact, he stepped in for me a few times in my career when Herbie couldn't make it or whatever over the years. But Frank is wonderful, and he was producing a show in Miami at the Miami University, and it was with a great group of musicians called the Impact of Brass, and the special guest star was Michel Legrand. They wanted a female singer, and of course Frank, being my friend, said, "You get yourself down to Florida." He says, "Guess who you're working with?" And I said, "With you?" He says, "Yeah, you're going to work with me, but you're also going to work with Michel Legrand."
Unbelievable.
So you and Herbie, I know, it was fabulous. He said, "You and Herbie get on a plane," he said, "and you're going to be on this TV special." We all wound up working for a couple of weeks together on this TV special. It wound up getting an Emmy Award.
Whoa.
It wound up getting an Emmy Award. We all got Emmy Awards in Florida for this. And it was they said the finest musical show of that season.
Oh.
And I wound up working with Michelle and the Impact of Brass, and Frank wound up producing it. Herbie wound up conducting. It was a wonderful, wonderful time for me in music. And you talk about people being humble. Michel was a very, very humble man, but again, it's that balance of he's always listening, but he has the strength of his convictions when he makes a decision musically up there. It's that it takes a lifetime to learn that balance.
Yeah, and it just works so beautifully. And also, I think the fact that you are somebody willing to listen, because, again, you have to be flexible enough, even though you're incredibly wise, but you have to sort of know how much to balance your wisdom.
Well, you got to know when to open your ears and shut your mouth. It's an interesting thing, but it's true.
You're right.
I remember when I worked with Michel, how quietly humble he was. He was almost painfully shy, if you will.
Wow.
Just a little bit short of that.
Yes, yes. Well, the mind was clicking around, but it's such incredibly passionate music. I have to just say this in honor of my dad, Harold Berman, who was a jazz pianist. And whenever he saw the movie Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which is a musical score, it's sort of an operatic film with a musical score entirely by Michel Legrand, he would cry, and I now cry whenever I see that movie and hear that music. And, of course, the song I Will Wait For You is in it, and we have that recording of you doing I Will Wait For You, Julie, and I'll probably cry. But let's just
The
hear.
orchestration is by Herb Bernstein. The composition is Michel Legrand.
Okay.
And then I threw my vocal on there, and I hoped that it would all meld
the
together.
The perfect storm, or the perfect tranquility. I Will Wait For You, Julie Budd.
time will come when all the waiting's done, the time when you'll return and find me here and run straight to my waiting arms. If it takes forever, I will wait for you for 1,000 summers. I will wait for you till you're back beside me, till I'm touching you, and forevermore sharing your
Bravissimo, Julie. I'm really getting verklempt here. I'm crying. So beautiful. It's just so much mergings of memories, nostalgia. Michel Legrand, Umbrellas of Cherbourg, my dad, you, the whole thing. But that was incredible. So I just wanted to ask you, aside from performing and doing these wonderful shows and creating and singing, do you also teach, right? You do master classes? And
now and then I will find people who want to be one-on-one with some coaching, some teaching. I do that. I also do some master classes. I go into universities, some of the performing arts centers that have asked me to come and do concerts, asked me to stay over an extra day and do master classes. I've done them at colleges and performing arts centers and sometimes at the symphonies. And I'm very happy to do it because I think it's very, very important for young people to have a place to outsource their questions and their feelings and to try out material. And I ask them if they want to present material at the master classes all the time. I think it's important as an artist. It's going to sound funny to say this, but to always be put on the spot.
Yeah. Well,
do you know what I mean? It's important.
Yeah. It kind of, you show up and you got to do it. You're like, you're on, baby, right?
And it's the only way you're going to know.
And that's what you did.
Where you are with your work.
Right.
And
what you have
and you've
to
got
do.
to have the courage to do it. And
Right.
it all comes down to, having a steel spine, because it's a rough business, and you just, there it is, the balance again. You have to have a sensitivity toward the work, but yet you've got to believe in yourself. It's that balance.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of young performers, and I got to tell you, I have some seasoned performers come in as well, and they want to check in with their work. You need another ear. It's very, very important. I remember when I was studying with Lydia and Willard, and I remember I remember I said to Lydia, Lydia, I understand the technique. I said, why do people continue to study even years later? And I was a kid, asking this question. I was so young. And she looked at me and she said, honey, you really need another ear. You need an ear that knows your instrument, and you need another ear. It's very, very easy to get hurt out there, and it's very, very easy to get a little bit off center, and you just need that ear. And I work with other performers quite often when I get the opportunity. It's always a pleasure, and I find that I'm learning myself when I teach them. So it's you become, listen, if you want to be a great teacher, you better be a good student,
And you are all of those. You're an amazing combination. Was that a word? Combination? I just created that word.
Listen, if it's not, it's our word.
Julie Budd, you are such a precious person and amazing performer, and such a person who reaches out. You're radiant in your music and in your soul. And try to get out there and hear Julie Budd at Birdland, May 1st through 4th, with her show, The Songs of My Life and the Composers Who Wrote Them, with Herb Bernstein, musical director. Or Tuesday, May 14th, at Friars Club, an evening with Julie Budd, celebrating a life in show business. It's such a pleasure. It's such a treat to have you on Mia's World, Julie. Again.
Well, you're such a doll to have me on. Really, you are just a sweetheart. I really, really, really appreciate you and your staff.
Oh,
thank you
so
much.
Of course. And City World Radio loves Julie, and we're going to go out with one of your incredible renditions of the Hoagie Carmichael tune, Skylark, with Hank Jones, and this was on the Ed Sullivan Show. So thanks to Ed, thanks to Herbie, thanks to Merv and Mike and Johnny and Julie. Bud, thank you. Happy spring, happy Passover, happy Easter.
You.
Have a wonderful, wonderful show. Thank you,
Thank
Julie.
you, honey. Thank you for
so
everything.
much.
Where
You're listening to the City World Radio Network. High definition